Coming. It's excellent to see a packed house. Who's expecting to see some product stuff in the session? Hands up. Anyone? No one. Oh, and I had free stuff to give away too. So we're going to try and make this a little bit of an interactive session. It's what I'd like is a bit of a dialogue. This is potentially an interesting session to run at a technical convention. I wasn't quite sure how it would go down, so I'm really pleased to see a packed room and pleased to see that you're interested in what we've got to say. I suspect a lot of you saw the title, that next big pay rise. I've talked to a few of you over the last day, and it's the pay rise one. So, but we'll see how you get on with that. So my name is Terry Chapman. I actually know quite a few people in this room, and it's great walking around the convention centre, and every 2 paces, oh hello, I haven't seen you since I worked at Fujitsu. Hello, it's excellent to see you all here. So I'm an enterprise strategist with Microsoft Services. I'm a father of 3 and I have a lovely wife, 3 young kids, a 6-year-old and 2 4-year-olds who keep me busy. I do quite a bit of lecturing, I do quite a few presentations, I do quite a lot of travel at the moment, and I work quite closely with a number of customers and a number of you guys in the room I've worked with before. My main role as an enterprise strategist, or out on the market sometimes we're called enterprise architects, is we link the business with technology. And so one of the skills of an enterprise strategist or enterprise architect is being able to capitalize on some of our soft skills. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There is a warning. So if anyone's easily offended by common sense, this is probably not the right session for you. So we're going to cover a few things in this session, and soft skills is a really wide topic. And so as I was putting this session together, I actually found it quite difficult to choose specific things. But this session's been bubbling away in the back of my head it's been a few years in the making, and it's the reason that it came up was through my career I've discovered that I've reached glass ceilings where I thought, I can't get I'm struggling to get that more senior role, or that role that I want over there. What do I need to do to get to that role? What skills do I need? And as I've gone through my own career, I've found that more and more it's the skills that I need for the more senior roles have not had much to do with my technical ability. Technical ability might be the baseline, but the soft skills are what's sitting on top of that. I also do a lot of mentoring of people over my career, and one of the areas where I've commonly seen people who I've worked with and colleagues I've talked to have seen the same is people's ability to connect with an audience, to communicate as a technologist, to be able to influence, and why that's important. And some of it's kind of the taking on big challenges, and we'll come to that in the presentation. One of my colleagues the other day asked me, well, what's a techo? What's a technical person? I thought, darn, that's a great question. What is a technical person? And I was thinking about it over breakfast this morning, and the definition that I came up with is, if you work more with computers than you do with people, then you're probably a technical person. Does that sound fair? Yep. Okay, so making the connection, because I know I did say pay rise, so I know there's a lot of people in here who are just going to show me the money. Improved soft skills equals money. $185 actually, but give or take. Add another disclaimer, okay? Okay, so I want to make this a little personal to you. So one of the best ways to do that is think about someone, a senior IT person who you personally know, who you aspire to be more like them, or you think they've got a great job. I want to have one of those jobs when they leave. What is it about that person which makes them a really good technologist? What makes them? Why are they the most senior in your company or in your customer's company? What is it about it? So what are their qualities? Some of these? Sure. How about these things? Okay, yep. Now we're getting somewhere. So what we've got here is, so we've got hard skills, and everyone in this room is expert in their field, and we've got soft skills. And these are the areas where sometimes, as individuals, our soft skills are underdeveloped, or we don't quite. Networking. That's connecting cables together, surely. No, well, it can be. But what's the value in networking with your peers and in industry? So and these are things that I've personally found in my career that I've had to develop to sort of progress. And by nature, I'm an analytical sort of person, so I deal really well with facts and figures and speeds and feeds, we call them. And so these are things which I've found personally challenging to develop my people skills, to move out of my comfort zone, to be aware of who I'm talking to, and be aware of myself and how I'm reacting. So this is what I'm proposing. So great technologist. If you're a great technologist today, but you feel something's holding you back, I'm going to bet that it's some of the soft skills which we're going to talk about today. So rockstar, I apologise, it's a very Microsoft term. We use that term in pretty much every slide. I promise, apart from now, I'm not going to use the word super excited in this presentation at all. So much to cover, so little time. We could take any one of those subjects and spend days talking about it. And what I'd encourage you to do is, I'll be around for this whole TechEd. I'm running the architecture track, so come along to all the architecture sessions. It's a great plug. But track me down. I'll be at the architecture sessions. I'll be at the stand. Come and talk to me about this stuff, because I'm really interested in what you guys have got to say on this, and what are some of the things that you've found? What are things that are important to you, and what have you found has worked for you? So these are the things we're going to. I think these are probably the three which, when I was trying to narrow it down, I thought, okay, these are the things that I come across most often when I'm talking to people who are trying to progress to a new stage in their career. So communication skills for Techos. Don't forget to bring the bread home tonight. I don't know. So think about when you've talked to another person and you haven't really got that connection. So they've glazed over. You've started talking ones and zeros. The person's really not that interested. They glaze. Irritate is another common reaction of, I don't understand you. This is making me cross. Just get out of my face. And redirect. This is. I know personally that if I'm talking to, say, a CEO or a CIO, if I get a redirect, I know in retrospect, unfortunately, that my level of communication has been at the wrong level. So if I'm talking to a CEO and after 10 minutes they say, oh, you need to go talk to my IT manager, I know that I've been talking at the wrong level. So redirect. Communication effective, any of these? No, probably not. So part of this is about empathy. And I've just put up here a mile in their shoes. So one thing which we as technologists sometimes struggle with is putting yourself in a non-technical position, and which is essentially what you're doing. So some of the examples I've got up here is, do I understand you? Quite simple, really. Do I trust you? We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. What's in the conversation for me? So are you describing what the world looks like in that person's eyes, or are you describing what it looks like in your eyes? If you're the only one that's got something out of this conversation, then it's not a great connection, is it? Does this conversation pass the who cares test? I know that sounds really simple, but I use the who cares really regularly. And I just use it as a benchmark of, I'm about to go talk to someone. This is the message that I want to convey, and then I just go, oh, so who cares? Nobody. Okay, I need to change that conversation. And the last one, which we're going to talk about a little bit more about shortly, is do I care about how, or do I care about what? So, and what I mean by that is we're all geek. Well, I'm a geek. Anyone in here a geek? Oh, not as many as what I thought. Well, quite often we care about the how, we care about the speeds and feeds, and it's the shiny lights, they're great. I was just looking at this KVM up here, and it's got lights flashing everywhere, and I'm really impressed, and I want to play with it, but I'll probably break it. Or the what. So the what is the impact of what you're saying. So we'll talk about that in a second. So let's look at an example. The customer database has gone down. This should inspire fear in at least some of you. So what are the levels of conversation that you're going to have with each of these individuals? So are you going to have the same conversation with the system engineer as you are with the CFO? No, probably not. I mean, when it's up on the screen and we're talking about it now, it seems really obvious, common sense. But how often do we think about this when we're facing a customer or someone in our organisation? How often do we think what motivates that person, what interests that person, what's their level of expertise and interest, and how am I tailoring what I'm saying so that they can get something out of this conversation? So same thing with, does a customer really care have the same interest as what an IT manager does? I mean, if you take it through to a conclusion, the customer, they care about my information. I can't get access to my information or my service. The IT manager, he's probably thinking, and in this case he's looking a bit worried in this picture, but he's probably thinking, how do I get all my staff mobilized to fix this? The CFO is probably thinking, how is this going to impact the company's bottom line? Are we going to lose customers, and are we going to get less revenue, less profit as a result of this outage? The system engineer, a lot of us in the room, is probably thinking, geez, I'm being told to fix this thing. Right, this is one thing. If you take one thing out of this presentation, this is one thing I'd like you to think about. Technical speak, ones and zeros. Business speak, the impact. So how? So what's happening? Some clown has changed the MTU size on the external router, and now nothing's getting through. Or the business speak. Our customers can't get to the database. We're losing business as a result of this. Our credibility as a company is going down. So as you're talking to a customer, to a colleague, to a supervisor, to an underling, have a think about where you are from a dial. And so I really like the concept of dial in this example. So do you need to dial down? Yeah. Still confused? Aha, about a solid 7 is where we're aiming for. So adjust your dial up or down as you're talking, and you can do it on the fly as well. So you remember we talked about glaze, irritate, redirect. So these are some of the things which you can look out for as you're talking to people and go, oh, okay, I don't think they're really getting me. Let's dial it down. Let's talk more about the what than the how. Does this make sense? General nods. Anyone got any examples where you've done that, where you've dialed something down? I have gifts. No? I was connecting with my audience. I've got to figure out some way to get rid of these things during the course of the session. So, yeah, yeah, sure. Yes. Yes, typically. Similar with enterprise architects. Similar. You can, depending on what role. So, business analyst, solution architect business analyst, solution architect. It really depends on the individual of who you're talking to. So some CIOs are really technical and they want to know the how, they want to know the what. Sorry, who asked that question? Hey. So some people want to know how, some people want to know what. And some CIOs are very business focused. And they just want to know, I don't care the details, get whatever it takes to fix this thing. So adjust according to the person. The roles are sometimes different. Mm-hmm.
With the redirect, isn't that inherent sometimes? Because it's easy to talk to. If you go straight to the top, that person quite often will redirect you, not because they're not interested, but because they don't have the capacity of the time or the
Yep. Yeah, that is a valid point. So the statement was, aren't you naturally sometimes going to get redirects from individuals? Like if you go and talk to the CEO, they're going to just point you down to the okay, that's the IT manager. Go talk to the IT manager, fix it. And so that's naturally going to be their reaction to we just need to get it sorted. So if you start the conversation with this is the impact to the business, and this is what I'm doing about it, and then off you go. So it's the CEO is not going to want to stay in chit chat while the customer database is down. Hey.
This may sound a little bit basic, but sometimes as techos, we don't have a really good grasp of what the impact of business is.
Yep.
So yes, we know the database is down, the customer's going to be getting, or the business will suffer, but we may not know enough to connect with the non-technical people.
Yep. That's a really good point. So the statement was sometimes as technologists we won't actually have enough information about what the impact to the business is. So what I'd suggest every person in this room does when you get back to the office is if you don't have a really clear understanding of what your customer sees about you, then go and talk to some of your business people and just network. Connect and get figure out what you do in your job every day, how that impacts your customer, how it impacts the business people around you, because your job has meaning for these people. These people rely on the systems which you guys architect, build, and maintain every day.
Just on clarification on networking, are you talking more about trying to find out where you are in terms of your company, in terms of communication, looking both down and up?
Yes,
so
yes.
I've got a technology manager who speaks to the CFO for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk to the CFO, or there is no one between me and the CFO. That's why I do it.
The question was of the, if I paraphrase right, so where do you find yourself within the organisation? And I'd say depends on your organisation a lot. So Steve Ballmer runs Microsoft. I wouldn't have a problem and go ping him a note. Career limiting move. But so understanding, of course, so understanding where you are, where you sit in the organisation. But from I think it was around networking. The question was.
Is it your, I'm just asking you, saying it's your responsibility to go and find out that information. Part of doing it is by using the networking opportunities to find out where you are and what you need to do.
Yeah, I think so. There's two things. One, network in your company, because these are people who'll be able to help you and collect allies. So it's good for the human contact, and it makes your job worth living. So what was the second part of that question?
Well, it's just about finding where you are and what part of that value you speak to.
Yeah.
Would you go directly to the CFO? You would
It really depends on the relationship. So if you're a trusted individual to that CFO, then they might ring you to find out what the problem is. And if you can speak their language, they'll want to talk to you. That's pretty hard. So the question was, what do you do if you're talking to a set of people at different levels? There are tools that you come and track me down during the session. I'll talk to you about business dependency networks. And so there are ways where you can connect what the business is trying to do with what the technology is that is enabling it. Yep. Oh yeah, email's horrible like that, isn't it? Even though we make a great email product, of course. So the question is how do you tell? Or Skype. Yeah. How do you tell? Use the people around you. So you might be in a meeting, and you might start or use trusted colleagues, and so ask them for help. So you're in a meeting with some colleagues, or your IT manager, or your mentor, hopefully, and say, can you give me a kick under the table if the CIO is glazing over what I've got to say? Part of it is developing your skills in reading these signs, but it's use people around you to help with that. So does that answer your question? Cool. Let's move on. So a brief checklist. So pre-flight. So before you meet with this person, who cares? Talked about that. What motivates my audience? That's really, really important. So if you can't put yourself in the other person's shoes, and if you'd be bored talking to yourself, if you just do an out-of-body experience for a minute, if you can't figure out what motivates them, then you're not going to have an effective communication. In flight. So right level or slipping into technobabble. So this is something which sometimes I do myself. I'll start off with good intentions, and then I'll start getting asked some hard questions, and then I'll go, oh, it's really, I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm going to slip back down, and technobabble, bang, it's gone. So just something to be aware of in yourself. Clear and concise. That's a whole different subject. Come to the next TechEd. I've got the session title in my head is called The Succinct Architect. I don't know what the rest of it's going to be, but I'm going to present that next TechEd. Am I trying to convince them why it's good for me? What's in it for them? Am I listening or waiting for my turn to speak? So there's heaps of really good books out there on active listening, and go forth and investigate. So if you know that this is a deficiency in your own skill set, then go forth and figure out a way to improve it. And there's lots of books out there which cover this. Any questions before we move on? Thanks for asking your questions. It's great. Hi.
Doesn't it sometimes your objective to get redirected? You know you can't speak to the techno manager's not going to talk to you. So you speak to the boss who's going to point you to the techno manager, who you say, your boss sent me, can we have a conversation?
Yeah, good point. So the question, or I guess a bit more of a statement, was sometimes you want to get redirected, and we're going to cover that actually, because that's under influence. It depends on the purpose of the meeting. So what do you do if there's lots of people of different levels in the meeting, and it happens pretty regularly, of course. Depends on what you're trying to achieve for the meeting. So if it's let's take an example. You're starting a project, and this is a meeting where you've got all of the stakeholders. So start off with a commonality across the group. So try and find something which is a common driver for all the people in the room. And then as you start to get into, so that's more the what, right? And as you start to get into the how we're going to do it, how we're going to cut up the project, how we're going to assign resources, if you've got the CEO or the CIO in there, they don't care about that stuff, right? So talk more about the what, connect with the common purpose for, in that case, it's a kickoff meeting for a project. So what are the overall goals of what we're trying to achieve with the project? What are the roles that people are going to play? How do we know if things are going off track? Common things which are relevant to the whole audience. And then I'd suggest, as you do with normal projects, break it off into, okay, next session is the project governance meeting. So everyone who's not interested in that, off you go. Influencing for Techos. Why would you influence? Why is influencing important for Techos?
Because you might see some technically good solutions adopted and not just political solutions.
Yep. Anyone else?
Getting funding.
Getting funding. Oh yeah. I'm not giving you one. Ex-Microsofty. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yep. Trust. Creating trust. Yep. And in what way? Making the job easier? Yep. And don't forget the title of this session. So how are you going to influence your boss to give you that pay rise? Of course. Does anyone know who this fellow is? Who said that? Aristotle. Yes. So 2,000 years ago, this fellow, he's a rather grim-looking lad, wrote a famous writing called Rhetoric, and he came out with modes of persuasion, and they are the core of a lot of what you see in modern writings on influence. So I thought it was useful to bring it up because I'm going to show you a little model in a sec to something which hopefully you can use as you go back out to your customers and within your own companies. So there's three elements of the modes of persuasion. There's ethics, which is credibility, and we'll cover off these in a sec. Pathos, which is connection, so appeal to the emotion. And logos, which is communication, which we've talked a little bit about, but also encompasses logic. So can you support your argument? So this is a model that I personally use and that I find useful to me, and hopefully it'll be useful to you as well. And these cover the credibility, connection, communication, clarity, currencies, and ethics. Because I'm talking to you about influencing, and so nobody likes to be thought that they're being manipulated. So if you're going to intentionally use influence, then make sure you do it for the right reason. So you're on the side of right, and make sure that you build trust and credibility as part of that. So what makes someone credible? A lot of it is, have I worked with you before? So past precedents. Personal knowledge on the subject. Do I trust that you're an expert? Pretty reasonable, really. What are your motivations? Are you here to sell me something? Are you prepared? That's common sort of meeting etiquette, really, isn't it? And one which I think is quite interesting, and some of the partners in this room, you'd apply to you. Does your brand or role add weight? And also for our customers in here as well, because it's not just about you as an individual. So let me use myself as an example because that's easy. When I go and talk to a customer, I've got a brand sitting behind me, and so the customer trusts Microsoft as a brand, And so by virtue, they trust me, unless I blow that trust, of course. But the downside of that is that if I blow that trust, then that's the customer's trust in Microsoft. So something to be really aware of. And so, and it might be something if it's not just brand, but it's also role. So if you are a senior IT engineer, if you're an enterprise architect, if you're a principal consultant, and you've got people around you who look up to you, then your role is your brand. And so people are going to trust you because of the position of authority and knowledge and getting to that. So something to think about. So connection, emotional. So there's, I'm just going to pick on a couple of these. Storytelling, and if, is my friend Mark Baxter in the room? There's, my colleague Mark Baxter is doing a session on storytelling at the end of today. I highly encourage you to go and see it. It's excellent. I love what he does. He takes a really complex message and takes it down to a really simple statement, simple message. That's something which we all really need to work on as technologists. Really good session, last thing today. Similarly, metaphor, personal experience, passionate delivery, peer pressure. I'll just touch on peer pressure because this is something that you brought up before. Peer pressure is not just for individual, but it's also underlings, it's people, as you mentioned yourself, if you can get influence from above down. It's also organisational. So if you're trying to influence someone, that person is going to probably not just take your word for it, but they'll want to take other people's words for it, other people who they trust. And so if I'm trying to so say I'm making a recommendation to a CIO who I'm working with, what I'll do is I'll collect support for that recommendation from the people that CIO trusts. And so it's I'll talk to the enterprise architect, the system architect, the techies, the help desk manager, whoever I need to help convey the message. And so when the CIO talks to their people as well, it's they're getting consistent message. I've got buy-in from the people who are actually going to do it, and so I've used influence to get a great outcome for the customer and also for what I'm trying to convey. Communication, logical argument. So speeds and feeds sometimes, although as techies we tend to dive straight into speeds and feeds a little too regularly, and also all the other stuff we talked about before. Clarity. Has anyone heard of SMART? S-M-A-R-T? Anyone use it regularly? SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So, as you're talking to someone, keep that in mind. I mean, it's a great thing to take through to life. Actually, it's I tend to think back on SMART pretty regularly just to make sure that I'm on point. But is the message that you're trying to convey on point? Are you waffling? Which I'm an architect. I tend to waffle. I try not to, but that's something I'm working on. Are you on point? Are you being concise? Are you getting the message across that needs to be get across? If you've got a presentation like this, or if you're trying to get something across the line for your IT manager or your CIO, are they clear on what you're asking them, or are you just talking at them? I mean, that's. And what's in it for me? We've talked about that, but it's also called currency. So what currency do you have to trade with? If you do this thing for me, I can do this thing for you. Trade, or it might be, the currency might be for the CEO. If we make this project successful, then the company's share price is going to increase. Excellent. That's what the CEO is after. And ethics. Be honest and authentic in your communications. always, especially when you're consciously using influence. And why? Because credibility was one of those components of influence, right? I don't know if you recognise that, but that's a burning bridge. So a metaphor, connection. Yeah. See, I'm using it. It's great. Expanding your network and sphere of influence. This is something I tend to talk quite a bit about when I'm mentoring colleagues. If you're influential to your mum and your cat, how do you think that's going to progress your career or get you what you need? Sorry? Nowhere. So, and I'll just build this out. World domination is what you're aiming for. So think about your network, not the plug-in network, your people network, the people in this room. So the person next to you, who are they? What company do they work for? Do they work for your company? Do they work for a competitor company? Do they work for, they're working at one of your customers? Expand your network, which expands your sphere of influence. In Microsoft, this is really, really, really easy to track because Microsoft is very individual, team, business unit. Everything is very clear boundaries. And so at the moment, I'm trying to work on my different levels of influence across different areas. And what I've actually found is that I've neglected some of these areas. So I've started to get good influence and network in Redmond at the mothership. So I've got good connections. I know who to ring, and some people who are important to me know me. But I've neglected my country influence. So there's people in Microsoft New Zealand who don't know me for a bar of soap, and for my career growth, that's going to be important for those people to know who I am and for me to be able to influence them. So just something to think about. Does this resonate with anyone? Does it make sense? Any personal examples? Okay, so we've got a checklist. How are we going for time? Excellent. Okay, so this is what we've talked about. Because the motivations, goals, and the currency for trade. How do you achieve strong credibility? Before you go and talk to that person, what's the groundwork that you've set for credibility? And it might be something as simple as I've prepared well. I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm an expert in my field. The other person wants to know what I'm talking about. Connect with your audience. Now, as technologists, and I fall into this category as well, think of what you can do as an emotional connection to your audience. Do bullet points do it? That's why I tend to use quite a lot of just graphics in my slide decks. And that for me, that's a real struggle because I'm an analytical kind of guy, as I mentioned before, and bullet points work for me. Bullet points are sexy. I love bullet points. But they're horrible at making a connection, as an emotional connection, especially when you're speaking to an audience. I don't want to leave you with a whole bunch of bullet points. I want you to think about some of these things and be able to connect them with, oh, that's right, he had this strange picture, but I remember that. Provide clarity, supporting evidence, speeds and feeds. It is important, but think of it as the baseline, not the goal of it. And seek to expand your network and sphere of influence. Any questions on that? Very important. So the question was, what about business jargons, industry speak, yada yada? Relevant to that business. That goes back to what we're talking about with communication. So be able to speak in a way that the person who you're speaking with understands you. And so if I'm talking to a customer and what's an example? If I want to convey a capability model as an enterprise architect, if the customer doesn't know what a capability model is, or they've got a different name for it, then it's up to me to adjust my speak, my language, to put the language in something that they understand.
It's all well and good because you're talking about a perfect world, but there's conflict. What's the tips around being constructive with conflict?
Conflict. In what regard? For talking specifically about influence, or?
So, okay, going back to influence,
Mhm.
talking about things like having two people who have different opinions, goes back to the little from behind me saying, people saying, actually, I think there's a better way of doing something, or testing your abilities as a subject matter expert.
Sure. So the question was, what about in the real world where there's conflict and difference of opinions, and there's no simple answer to that. And I steered away from conflict management in this because that's way too hard. But it all comes down to communication in the end. So trying to walk a mile in the other person's shoes. So you might reach a different conclusion at the end of it, but it's understanding what the message they're trying to convey. And if you got two techies battling it out for this is what the architecture should look like, they're both heading towards the same goal. So start as that as your base platform to try and reach. You're never going to get away from conflict. It's just part of human nature. But it's start with the commonality, work on the communication, and then head towards the common goal. And it's try to sort out the sort of differences as you go. I know this is a bit of a woolly answer, but it's for each of you, you need to discover your own way of how to deal with it.
There's probably some baseline on that, like, don't ever tell a CFO you are wrong.
Oh yeah. Well, it's what's the saying? The customer is never step one. Customer is never wrong. Step two, see step one. So people don't like being told that they're wrong. So that's in the structure of your language. And so you'll see in this presentation, I'm deliberately using the word we, us, how we deal with things, things which are a struggle for me. If you think if I was to do this presentation differently, if I was to say how you struggle, how you have something difficult, then it becomes personal. And so I've changed my language, and I'm being accusing. I'm saying, well, I'm perfect, but you guys aren't. So that's more in the language that you use and being inclusive. And I'm being honest too, these are some of the things that I personally struggle with, and it's things which I see other people struggling with. And by virtue of that, you've turned up today, then hopefully that you've recognised that there's some elements in your own character which with some of the soft skills you can develop. Taking on big challenges. Cool, good for time. This is I didn't know quite what to do for this. I know I wanted to do taking on big challenges because it's when you look at the people who inspire you, they're doing amazing stuff. So when I look at some of the people who inspire me, these are people that take on incredible projects. They seem to win in the face of adversity, and they are rock stars. And I aspire to be like these people. And I suspect that the people that you've had in your mind that you thought about at the start of the presentation, I suspect that these people also take on big challenges. They have a positive attitude, they extend their comfort zone, and we'll talk about people you trust in a sec. That's important to be able to achieve this stuff. I love this. This is something that in Microsoft services, this is something that we are trying to do at the moment. So we had our services off-site the other week, and we had a really good guest speaker, Stephen Drew, who's the APAC Premier Director. And I've kind of borrowed it from him, and we're trying to think of this as a whole at the moment. I mentioned before about language, and a lot of us get stuck into the no because blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really matter why. If we just turn that language around on its head and replace no because with yes if, then suddenly things are possible. Does this hit home for anyone? Works well for young kids. Oh, I wish I could do this as a parent. I really do. I wouldn't want to even count the amount of times I've said no to. I've got a 6-year-old and 2 4-year-olds. Can I jump out the window? No, because no. Yes, if. Yeah, if mum's not watching, go for gold. Yes, if mum's not watching, jump out the window. I'll take you down to A&E, which I spend quite a bit of time down there anyway, so they know me down there now. Yeah, oh, that's a good one. Yes, if you ask your mum, so abdicating responsibility. And then mum can say no because. A positive attitude. It's common sense. We're going back to that common sense thing. I know. Sorry, I'm harking on about it. Positive attitude is really important for what we do. Optimism breeds optimism. Pessimism attracts pessimism. So, do you want to have fun at where you work? Probably. Do you want people to look up to you and be inspired by you? Probably. If you have a negative attitude, it tends to attract negative things around you, and it also attracts a mental mindset of, oh, man, that's going to be hard. Oh, no, I can't be bothered. Maybe I'll just stay in bed. Yes, if you might get to the same outcome, but it just changes your whole perspective on things. This is something which I'm trying to use personally, and I haven't been using it long enough to be able to come back and say, yeah, it works great. But it's something which I think this is going to be one of the things which helps me be a more positive person. Expand your comfort zone. You guys are all seeing this, I know. Comfort zone is something which I regularly talk with about people, or to people. So everyone knows this model. You've got your comfort zone, which is yay big, and then you've got outside of your comfort zone, so you stretch to go out of your comfort zone. I was also recently introduced to this model, which I think is actually pretty good. So that's when you've stretched too far and everything's freaking out. It's just, no, I can't handle this. So this is the first time this is one that the guy I mentioned, Stephen, came up with. And I thought, yeah, occasionally I've been in that panic mode, and maybe that's just a little bit too far outside my comfort zone. So I guess the challenge here is to figure out what your comfort zone is and what's outside of your comfort zone, and what's so far outside of your comfort zone that you're going to be rendered ineffective. So, and what do I talk about comfort zone? What are some of the things that you feel when you're outside of your comfort zone, guys? Nervous, fear, apprehension, anxious. What's that? Alive! It's alive! All of these things. Who in this room would much rather fry their head than get up here on stage and do a presentation in front of all you guys? Oh, there's not many hands. Great. I'll be recruiting some of you for the next TechEd. So, fear of looking stupid. Inertia's easier. I'll just call in sick today. Anxiety, I'll be seen not to be the expert. So these are all pretty common things when you're exiting your comfort zone. So these are all good leading indicators of, oh, I'm out of my comfort zone. And my argument to this is that it's not until you get out of your comfort zone that you're learning something new, that you're growing as a professional and an individual, you're gaining new boundaries. And I find it, for myself, I find it a really useful mindset. And so whenever I think, oh, I really don't want to get up and do this presentation today. It's a technical conference. I don't know if it's going to land. It's soft skills. Think by doing this, you're going to come out the end of this with new skills, possibly new friends, new connections, new networks. But it's as you work to go out of your comfort zone, you grow as an individual. And so the people who you thought of before as inspiring, think they didn't just do what they always did and knew what they always knew. They didn't learn anything. They had to expand their comfort zones in order to grow as individuals and professionals and to get to where they are. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's think just a personal thing to you. You don't have to share it. But think of the last time that you were really out of your comfort zone. You went and did it anyway. What did you feel after that? You can share that. Euphoria. That's a good one. I like the word. Anything else? And so next time you were out of your comfort zone, did you think about the last time I was out of my comfort zone? These are the things which I grew as a professional. I managed to influence some people I never thought I was going to influence. Now I'm comfortable doing this thing. So I'll use the presenting as an example. So the people who put their hands up for much rather bore your head than present. Start small. So you can go little increments out into your comfort zone. So I wouldn't go far onto the boundary because that goes straight into panic. So take it small. So if you want to be a good presenter, start small. So why don't you start with your team meeting, for instance? So say that at the moment you're petrified of presenting. And I know a lot of you guys have presented and present every day. But so start small. I'm petrified of presenting. My next team meeting, I'm going to do a 5-minute presentation on fishing, because I really like fishing. So something you're expert in, so you don't have to worry about whether you're going to run out of knowledge or not. And just ask for some support, obviously, from your IT manager, and just expand it out. Oh, wow, that worked pretty well. It wasn't quite as scary as what I thought. Next one, okay, bigger. And then ultimately, you'll be standing on the stage next TechEd presenting for the architecture track. Know a learner model. This is something which I got introduced to the other week by Stephen, which I actually quite resonated with me. Knowers tend to be a little more egotistical. They know everything there is to possibly know within their comfort zone, but they don't tend to go out of their comfort zone because then they're not the expert. So I think we probably all know people like that. So it's difficult to grow as an individual and a professional if you have that mentality. I like this one, the learner. So deliberately going out of your comfort zone with the expectation of, okay, well, there is a risk that I'm not going to be the expert, but I'm going to grow as an individual. All right. Any questions on that before we do move on? I personally like this model. It gives me something to hang my own hat on when I'm thinking, do I want to stay in my comfort zone and appear to be an expert, or do I want to venture out and learn something new? Seek a mentor. Now, this is your safety net. This is how you do things safely and don't go straight into the panic. So the person you thought about earlier, now there's a thought. Why don't you go and talk to that person and say, could I catch up for a coffee once a month and just talk about stuff? Who has a mentor in here? Surprisingly few. Sorry, I do. I have mentors and mentees. So, and Microsoft institutionalized that as well. If you do one thing when you get back to your office, is go and get yourself a mentor. So this is someone that's been there, done it, and can help you guide. I've got my mentor is he's a really experienced guy. I've he's one of the guys who I'm inspired by, and he's my business mentor. So the internal politics and stuff of Microsoft, and there's lots of that. And so, and last time I had a situation, and I thought, oh, this is out of my depth. I really don't know how to deal with this. And so I just contacted my mentor. Okay, well, this is what I'm facing. What do you think? And he just guided me through some of the options which I had available to me, which was absolutely invaluable. And so now I learned. I was out of my comfort zone. I got some help from someone I trusted, and navigated through that. Different mentors for different skills. I have a technical mentor as an enterprise architect. So TOGAF and capability models and blah, 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 all that uninteresting stuff. And I've also got well, I guess you could probably call a soft skills mentor of someone who I trust with, who's been around in the industry a long time, and can help give me guidance. And that gives me a safe way to explore outside of my comfort zone without freaking out, without, you know, you get the picture. Mentor rather than coach. Does anyone know the difference? Or can anyone? Yeah. Ask versus tell, yes. So if you're on the football pitch and you've got a coach, the coach will say, pass to this guy, then run that way. So that's a coach. So sometimes that's okay, but normally being told what the destination is not actually going to give you any new skills, because you didn't actually figure out how to get to that destination. So a mentor, a good mentor, and there are some bad mentors, there are some good mentors. So if you're looking for a mentor, what you need to look for is someone who's not going to give you the answer. You need to do X, Y, Z. Okay, off you go. Oh, that didn't work. Wonder why that was. Or it did work. Wonder why that was. A good mentor will ask you questions and give you a lead in to, have you thought about this? What about trying a few of these things? And so it leads you on the journey yourself, and you get the experience of discovering what the right answer is for you. And that might be different for what it is for your mentor. Just one last word on mentor is respect, honesty, and confidentiality. And so this is both as you as a mentee, or if you mentor people yourself, there's a lot of trust in that relationship which needs to be maintained. So, I realise I'm standing between you and lunch, so I won't keep you. Bring it all together. So there's three big things we've covered today. How do you communicate? As a technologist, how do you communicate? How do you change your level of communication? I really like the concept of a dial. How do you dial down or up to adjust your language and what you're trying to communicate to be appropriate to your audience, whether it's one person or whether it's a room full of people? How are you using influence to get a win-win outcome? Now, I think we've covered that. And are you seeking to take on big challenges? And every one of your companies, all you have to do is ask. But if you don't ask, it won't be given to you. Seems like common sense, but it's come across it pretty regularly. Oh, I don't have a new laptop. I hate this laptop. Well, have you asked for a new one? Oh, no, I haven't. Okay. Go out there and ask for those challenges. Do things which take you out of your comfort zone and get a mentor to help you guide along that path. So what do I want from you for this session? I'd like you to consider one of the things that we've covered today and think about what you're going to do differently, or what you could do differently when you get back to your office to improve your soft skills and to get that next big pay rise. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for coming to the session. It's great having you. Thank you for being interactive. I love having the questions and the considerations and comments. Please go forth and be successful and enjoy the rest of the conference.